What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Paco Reacts. Today we are learning about the Steam lawsuit. I heard this was going on. I don't know too much about it, so I'm actually very interested in watching this. As much as I know, real quick, just to recap, Steam had a lawsuit before. They beat it, but now they're being sued in New York, and it's like billions of dollars, billions with B, and it could potentially change gaming as we know it. Something about like gambling, especially with like the CS:GO stuff like that. But yeah, let's just get right into the video and see what's going on with this Steam lawsuit.
Steam has a billion-dollar problem it's currently being sued for yet again, as it's safe to say that Valve's situation just got so much worse in the last couple of weeks after they were already hit with a $900 million lawsuit over anti-competitive pricing on Steam, because now the company's facing yet another legal battle. But this time, the lawsuit's coming from someone a little bit more serious, the New York State government. And now they're targeting something that's been a part of their business model for years. But before we get into the lawsuit itself, let's make sure that everyone's on the same page when it comes to loot boxes, because obviously loot box gets thrown around a lot. But why does New York
Loot boxes is one of the worst things ever added to video games. It's manipulation. It's just designed to make you spend your money. In my opinion, it is a form of gambling. Those of us who are older, like I'm a millennial, I'm in my 30s. Those of us are older. Remember the days before loot boxes, before monetization, where you can earn everything in game. If you absolutely wanted to, you could spend a little extra money to pre-order a game and get something exclusive. Ever since the introduction of loot boxes and like bundle packs, it's been a form of gambling. And I don't on one hand I don't knock gambling because in some senses, gambling can be fun. Like if you're screwing around with your friends, stuff like that when you're not taking it serious. But on the other hand, it is actually a very serious problem. And there are a lot of people out there who are in debt, who lose their entire livelihood, stuff like that because of gambling. So, my personal opinion, loot boxes, any sort of that should not be in any type of video games.
York have a problem with it. So besides Steam, Valve also develops games like, Dota, Team Fortress, and Counter-Strike. And
Never played any of them.
Specifically is the main game of the center of all this. So from just playing the game, you can randomly get a loot box. But if you want to open the loot box, you have to pay for a key, which is like, I think it's like $1.90 or something like that. And inside of those boxes, you have randomized cosmetic items like, custom weapon skins or glove skins. And just to be clear, none of these skins does anything functional in the game. It's just all for cosmetic or visual purposes.
So even though they don't do anything functional in the game, doesn't Steam have that? Well, I don't know if Steam has it, but isn't there that CS:GO website where this stuff could be sold for real money? Like, wasn't there a skin for something that recently, maybe not recently, maybe it was a little while ago, but it sold for like over $1 million of real life money?
Purposes. So it doesn't make the game pay to win, but a lot of players do choose to collect these items. Correction, keys cost $2.50. It's been a while since I've opened a case. But essentially, the loop is you get a free box through playing, and then you spend real money on a key to open it, and then you get a randomly selected item. And most of the time, you get something that's worth less than the key. But sometimes you get something that costs a decent amount of money. So there was one skin that sold over $1 million in 2024.
Yes.
And the entire
2024,
skin market was valued at over $4 billion as of early 2025. So clearly there is a...
Wait, the skin market is valued over $4 billion in the beginning of 2025? Jesus. So Valve is making... Wait, let me look this up. Does Valve get a cut of that? Valve takes 15% combined cut on every Counter-Strike 2, formerly CSGO skin sale made through the Steam community market. This fee consists of 5% Steam transaction fee and 10% game-specific third-party peer-to-peer marketplaces. To avoid this high fee, sell a skin for $10, you receive $8.50, keeps $1.50 of it. Oh, okay.
A lot of money. This is technically a $5 billion potential liability for Valve. One could call
Facts.
it a $5 billion problem, or one could say it's a $5 billion blessing, depending on who you ask. Up until now, it's been a blessing for Valve, and we'll get into why. Because you do have a whole economy where many players put a decent amount of their net worth into Counter-Strike items. And I mean, when you look at year-over-year returns, it's actually worked out pretty nicely for them. And I guess that's just looking aside from Valve changing how they do trade-up contracts, which is like one aspect of the game, which caused all knives in the game to drop like 40% in value overnight. But yeah, I feel like after 2020, all sorts of random markets became extremely valuable. Like you had the trading card games blew up massively, Counter-Strike items, the car market went crazy. Basically anything that was scarce and that you could collect went absolute crazy in 2020. But for those of you guys who aren't familiar with the Counter-Strike skin buy key and then open box system, it does get a little bit interesting because unlike most games, you know, with similar systems, Valve actually lets you do something with the items you win. You can trade them, you can sell them through their own platform, the Steam community market, and you can also sell your items and receive Steam wallet credit where you can then spend it on other games, skins, or...
So if this is selling it for money, I'm going out on a limb here, just thinking about this. They're having a lawsuit for this, and I'm assuming it's probably because you could sell it for money, and it is considered gambling because even though there's no true function of the items in game, you are still selling it and can receive real world money for a cosmetic item. So why don't they just delete that option? Why don't they keep the option that you can sell it for Steam currency or trade it? Or maybe that just doesn't have anything to do with the lawsuit. Like I said, I'm not too familiar about this. I heard Steam and Valve have been getting sued a lot lately in the last year. I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now, like, if the whole premise of the lawsuit, is that you could sell it for real world money and it's considered gambling, then take that option away.
Or physical Steam products, like the Steam Deck. And then on top of that, many players also connect their Steam profiles to third-party marketplaces where skins can be sold for real money and withdrawn to a bank account. Or they could also be gambled. So there's this entire economy where these skins are worth X amount of money and you can insert them into random gambling sites and then play with that currency of what the skin was worth. Now, Valve doesn't officially support these third-party websites, and they've definitely made it a whole lot harder for them since they first started building them, because before, when there was new trade bans, people would just trade items instantly, and that was like the Wild West of both third-party markets and third-party gambling sites. But back to why the $5 billion skin economy is a massive blessing for Valve, because Valve takes a 15% cut on all Steam community market transactions. So whether you win big or spend endlessly chasing something rare, they are profiting either way. And the opening animation for these cases on CS2 is a spinning wheel, like a carousel of possible rewards that lands on whatever you're gonna get. And the lawsuit also specifically points out the animation even includes a near miss effect, where, you know, high value items can appear right next to the one you actually landed on. That technique has been used in casino machines for decades to create the feeling that you almost won something.
Yeah, it's gambling.
And you know this, if you've ever opened a case or watched CSGO creators open cases, you've seen people crash out at being right next to their desired outcome.
Oh my god, fy fan vad nära! Alltså
But on February 25th, 2026, New York Attorney General Lolita James filed a lawsuit against Valve in state court in Manhattan. And her argument is essentially that what Valve is running isn't a game mechanic, it's gambling. And gambling outside of very specific circumstances is illegal under New York's constitution and penal law. And the way New York defines gambling is when someone stakes something of value on a game of chance in which they might receive something of value depending on the outcome. According to Lita James, Valve's loot box system fits that definition exactly. You pay for a key, you open a box, and you get what is entirely determined by chance. And the items you receive can be resold for real money. So according to
That's what I'm saying. Then if you have different components that it could be entirely left up to chance and you can sell the item for real world money, just don't sell. Steam should come out and officially denounce the third-party websites. I don't know if they have or not, but they should also come out and remove the option to sell it on the Steam community for real-world money. I could be thinking about this entirely wrong, but I think leaving it in there to be able to go ahead and trade it or get Steam currency, to me, I don't see that so much as gambling, because if you're forced to get Steam currency in order to use it, like I know you don't have to right now, but if Steam would change it, and you would have to use your Steam wallet, and then you could go ahead and sell the item that you got, and the money would go right back onto your Steam wallet. You could essentially play it off as like getting a refund. Almost.
Alita, per New York's legal framework, that combination makes it gambling. And the AG's investigation even included that someone converting a knife skin into actual cash by selling it on Steam Marketplace, using the proceeds to buy a Steam Deck and reselling the console offline. And I guess that's why you can get Steam Decks sold on like eBay or third-party websites for cheaper than what you can on the Steam store, because I guess people are just trying to, liquidate their Steam funds. And I'm not gonna lie, that's a clever workaround. But now, a significant chunk of the lawsuit focuses specifically on the younger players, because let's be for real,
Yep.
these online games
Kids.
always have the chance of teenagers and kids playing them as well. So the office argues that exposing children to loot box mechanics introduces them to gambling behaviors at a formative part of their development. And obviously one could argue that Counter
I agree with that. There's no way around it. If you expose a child to something for so long, especially in their developmental years, then the child is going to think that's okay, and they're more likely to go out and do it. So if you are exposing a kid who's 7, 8 to gambling, and they grow up the next 10 years gambling, by the time they hit 21 and they're like, yes, I can go gamble legally, this is where you get the gambling addicts from.
Strike isn't a game meant for children, and that's made pretty clear on its Steam page. But I mean, I played it as a kid, and I definitely was exposed to gambling through Counter-Strike first. Now, that is through third-party gambling websites, but it's still interesting regardless. So, I mean, a lot of this should fall on the parents, as the platform itself also provides parental control tools, but it definitely does lead us to an interesting conversation to have. But in terms of what New York is actually asking for this lawsuit, there are a few things on the table. First, they want Valve to stop offering loot box systems in the state forever, and they want restitution paid back to every New Yorker who spent money on keys. And the biggest ask is a fine worth 3 times whatever Valve profited from these practices in New York. And that exact number, that's not public. But between key sales and marketplace commissions across one of the most populated states in the country, it's safe to say that we're talking about something in the tens of millions at the minimum, but most likely into the billion, which is why most likely Valve has a $1 billion problem here. Because you're talking key sales, case sales, and marketplace transactions in the state of New York. I would not be surprised if we're in the $1 billion territory there. However, I think if this does go to trial,
it's going to be way more than $1 billion
against Valve, there are several pretty clear arguments that the company could use here. The first one being Counter-Strike's age rating and their built-in parental controls. And not only that, but the odds of every loot box item are publicly disclosed within the game.
Yes.
And I guess the biggest one is there's no real way to withdraw cash out of Steam. You have to go through a third-party website, like going through like eBay with the Steam Decks, or Facebook Marketplace or a third party like Counter-Strike skin website where you exchange your skins for crypto or something like that. But I also feel like there's a broader comparison that this does feel very close to, which, you know, is trading card games like, you know, Pokemon, Magic, sports cards. They basically all operate in a similar fashion. You pay a fixed price, you get randomized cards. Some are worth a lot of money, but most of them are worth not.
Yeah, so if they're going after Steam for the CS:GO skins, why aren't they going after Pokemon? Why aren't they going after Magic the Gathering? Why aren't they going after some of these other, um, say trading card games or even just video games that could be considered gambling as well? For some reason, they're focused on Steam. Could it be that they're focused on Steam because Steam is the largest PC platform out there and they consider it to be somewhat of like a monopoly on the PC gaming market? I mean, I've tried, you know, the Ubisoft launcher, the EA launcher, Epic. I'm not a fan of them. Most of my stuff that I get through Steam, the only reason I have the EA launcher and the Ubisoft launcher on my PC is because for Game Pass games. But I don't sign up for them. I don't do any of that. I just log in with my Xbox account, you know, and go through there. But they're targeting Steam for some reason. I'm not fully understanding that.
That much at all. And then you have an entire secondary market built around the valuable ones.
My blue eyes.
And to my knowledge, nobody's suing, you know, Wizards of the Coast or the Pokemon Company for this. I guess the only difference here is that Counter-Strike and TF2 items are digital. None of that automatically means that Valve is illegally in the right here, but it does explain why this debate has been running on for years without any real resolution. Because there are some genuine arguments on both sides, and the line between game mechanic and gambling can be a little blurry sometimes. And I don't know if that's just me being a little bit desensitized, because we live in this like hyper gambling society now. I feel like after 2020, people just start gambling on everything. I mean, sports betting got way bigger than ever. Now you have prediction markets coming into play, and then obviously you have all the, you know, crypto meme coin speculation.
I don't know if Atozi's going to mention it, but why aren't they going after sports betting? You have all these sports betting websites and stuff that's gambling, and they're essentially doing, in my opinion, they're doing a worse thing than even what Steam's doing. But you don't hear about any of that. You don't hear about them going after, like he said, you know, the Pokemon Company to make sure in every pack, every booster pack, there's guaranteed one good card that'll be worth your money, you know. What is a pack of Pokemon cards going at now? I haven't bought them in such a long time. What? Like $8 per pack or something like that? You know, why aren't they going after them to guarantee, you know, at least a $10 card in every pack? There's, like I said, they're targeting Steam. If you guys know why they're targeting Steam, let me know down in the comments below. But I'm going to keep looking into this because I have no idea why they're going just after Steam and CSGO. I mean, I have my theories. It could be because CSGO is the only game I can think of off the top of my head where you can gamble on something and then sell it for real world money. Like every other game that had loot boxes, and main one that comes to my head is Call of Duty. You were able to buy loot boxes with real world money, but you weren't able to resell the stuff or trade it or gamble it away again.
Unfortunately, all of this has been very normalized in society, and it's pretty sad. But this is kind of a slippery slope, because it's like, if you start regulating this, what does that mean for trading card games? Like, there's... Is it Thomas Sowell that says Sowell? Is it Thomas Sowell that says there's no real solutions, just trade-offs? I feel like that's where we are here today. But Belgium and Netherlands have moved to restrict and outright ban certain loot box systems back in 2018, classifying them as gambling under their own laws. And even more recently, in early 2025, the federal...
Yeah, what is it? Like the Netherlands and... I forget what the other what other country over in Europe, but it's the Netherlands and Let me look this up before I give you guys the wrong information. All right, let me see. Poland has one of the most strictly regulated gambling markets in the EU. Yeah, enforce complete bans on all forms of sports betting. Okay, that's sports betting. Um, yeah, I remember a little while ago, this was a huge thing in the EU about trying to enforce the online gambling regulations. I mean, this is sports betting. I don't want sports betting. Let me see. Yeah, okay. When I switched up how I was searching, Belgium, Netherlands, Austria, and Germany. Belgian Gaming Commission, paid loot boxes are gambling, so they're completely out of Belgium. Netherlands Gaming Authority, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Prohibits offering games with random tradable rewards without a license. Okay. So Netherlands is kind of a little less strict than Belgium. Belgium just flat out developers have to flat out disable them or they're going to be criminally prosecuted. Netherlands, you need to apply for a license. Austria is about possessing real world monetary value, constitutes illegal gambling. Germany here doesn't have an outright ban, but they require games with loot boxes to receive a USK 12 rating and mandatory explicit labeling regarding the process or the presence of in-game purchases. Okay. Spain has a draft law. Finland has a draft bill in consideration. United Kingdom's For the United Kingdom, reports have described loot boxes as structurally and psychologically akin to gambling, with potential future policies focusing on spending limits and improved disclosure. Okay, so the UK is just, or not the UK, Europe is just flat out going against loot boxes and any type of like online gambling in games. It looked like from what I first looked up, they're going against a lot of online gambling, period, like sports betting, loot boxes in games, stuff like that.
Federal Trade Commission went after Congosphere, the studio behind Genshin Impact.
I think this guy's a lost cause. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
And they hit them with a $20 million fine for allegedly misleading players about their actual odds of winning valuable items. So, this conversation in the gaming community has been alive for a long time. But as of right now, this is just beginning. Valve hasn't made any public statements, no trial date has been set, and cases like this tend to move extremely slowly. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but the stakes here go well beyond just Valve, because if New York wins this case, it probably wouldn't affect only the CSGO skins, but also how everything else similar to this works. So I guess all we can really do is wait and see what happens, but if you're new here, feel free to subscribe, drop a like if you enjoyed this video.
Yeah, it's going to affect everything. If Valve wins, loot boxes, online gambling, stuff like that is going to be pushed even harder. If Valve loses, it's hard to say if the United States government, like the federal government, is going to do anything about it or not. I know the federal government already has regulations on it, but best of my understanding, they're not exactly very strict. But we just have to wait and see. This is definitely another one I'm interested in. Between this one and the TikToker that unalived her boyfriend. These are two cases I definitely want to start following. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, please like the video, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Also, let me know what you guys are interested in, and we can look those up.